It's always interesting to think about the disability community is the only minority group that anyone can join at any time, because any of us could get a disability, right? I could walk out today and get hit by a car and not be able to walk. I mean, anyone can fall into this category, and so it's an overlooked group, and yet it's the only one that we could all be a part of at some point in our lives. I'm Tiffany Hunt, and I am a faculty member in the special education program, both for the undergrad and graduate degrees, and I'm the program coordinator for both of those programs as well. A lot of misconceptions would probably be around thinking that you know what special education is because you knew one kid when you went to school that had a disability, and so it's like that's what special education is. Special education looks different from general education a few ways, but one of the most important or things that we think about is that any child that has a disability who is eligible for special education services receives an IEP, which is an individualized education program. And I would gather that most students, if you don't have a disability, do not know about what a plan like this is, right? Students are just receiving education across the board, but for students with disabilities in special education, they get this very individualized, specific plan. And in that plan, teams of people come together, it's a multidisciplinary team, including parents, who make decisions about what a free, appropriate public education looks like for this particular child, which just basically means an individualized education that allows the student to benefit from their instruction. So IEPs include baseline of where the student is, goals of where we want the student to go and to progress to, services, so specialized instruction by generally a special education teacher, occupational therapy if that's needed, speech language pathology if that's needed, counseling services, anything that the child needs that would have to be in place in order for them to benefit from their education, that would be written into that IEP. And then that is a year-long plan that teachers and everybody they're required by law to follow everywhere in the United States. The majority of our students are very successful. In fact, there is a misconception about special education that all students with disabilities in special education are kiddos that have cognitive disabilities or physical impairments, and that it's very obvious that they have disabilities. But the majority of students that have disabilities, you wouldn't even know. Most of them have learning disabilities, some have social emotional disabilities, maybe a hearing impairment, some things that aren't always super obvious, but when you join school, we start to notice like, hey, there's some differences here and maybe there's something going on. I often get the comment when I say I'm a special education teacher, oh my gosh, you're so patient. You must be so patient. I can't believe you could do that. How, you're so wonderful. And I'm appreciative of that. And I'm not saying I didn't need to be patient, but all teachers need to be patient, first off. And secondarily, the students that I worked with, for the most part, probably no one would ever recognize that they had disabilities. So that kind of misconception of what it means to be in special education means that you are, not smart, or you are incapable of progressing and doing things. And even students that have learning disabilities are actually highly intelligent. They just learn differently, right? I'm not saying that all of them are above average in intelligence, but they're average and sometimes above. Also, people don't understand that you can excel in one area and still have a disability. And then I'll also say about special education is all about meeting student needs. So we like to say that it's actually best practice for all students. So what we might do for a student with a disability is likely going to support any other student as well, right? So all students can benefit from quality instruction that's individualized and accommodations and supports, right? All students benefit from that. We now know that students that are in schools that have their needs met, that are with their general ed peers as much as possible, they have a lot of success. A lot of times they can live in independent living situations, they hold down jobs, they take care of their own finances, and it's been a significant change. It's been wildly beneficial for our students. And then students with learning disabilities and things that you wouldn't necessarily see they also do a lot better. They also do really well when they graduate and get jobs and whatever else. So we still have a lot of growth, I will say, in this area in terms of hiring individuals with disabilities. Some of those disabilities that are more significant, we see that employment rates are much, much lower for them. And I think that's because employers are, potentially nervous, not knowing how to support an individual that has a disability and not knowing that they actually can perform a job really, really well that maybe other people don't necessarily want to do, right? But, not having that experience or understanding, we often fear what we don't know, right? I think in our media, we could portray individuals with disabilities a little bit more accurately. I think that we have a lot of room for growth there. And even in schools, like we have teachers that are really accepting and wanting the students with significant disabilities in their classrooms, and they want to work with them. But that's not always across the board. I think sometimes, again, they get overlooked and maybe they're in the school, but they're not necessarily in the classroom with their general ed peers. And we could definitely grow in that area for sure. Individuals that don't necessarily understand or have someone in their family or know somebody that has a disability are unaware of some of the obstacles that our individuals with disabilities face. When it snows really badly and you are walking down the street and it's really icy and there's still snow on your sidewalk, how does someone with a disability, even with a curb cut, if they're in a wheelchair, how are they going to be getting to work? Right? So some things that we take for granted that we really need to be conscientious of. Thank goodness we have ADA today, right? There are things that are so much better, but there continue to be things that we need to progress in.